Welcome to Adapter Parish, episode 86, Emma, part 2. If you haven't already listened to part 1, do press pause and go check it out. In that episode, we examined Jane Austen's Emma and looked at 5 traditional film and television adaptations of the story. For this episode, we're stepping away from the traditional. That means musicals, that means YouTube, Bollywood, and it means Clueless. But first, let's talk about our next episode. Episode 87 of Adapter Parish is going to be looking closely at a 1966 book, a 1967 movie, and a 1981 miniseries. The book, it was, quote, big, brilliant, and sensational, if poorly written. The movie was, quote, trashy, campy, soapy, and melodramatic. The miniseries, it was, quote, leaden and laborious. There's only one story that could be so much to so many people, and that's Jacqueline Suzanne's Valley of the Dolls. Our in-depth look at the famous story of fame and excess will be out in 2 weeks on Tuesday, March 9th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 86, Emma, part 2. Welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw, and we're coming to you live from another snowy day in Boston.
Yeah. We're not live.
But it is
This
snowy.
is not live.
But it is snowing.
This
and
is
we
heavily
are in Boston.
edited. We can't do live. We've tried live.
Have we?
Remember when we were on the Castle of Horror podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Remember we got interviewed?
Yeah, we kept apologizing for how badly we were doing.
Yeah, it's just like we need to be edited.
Yeah.
That's what we need. And like already, right, you're listening to this right now, we've already stopped and started like 27 times.
That's not true. We haven't stopped and started at all.
I had to like restart something I was saying.
Why do you make us sound worse
This
than
show, we are professionals, and we want you to have a good product, which is why I heavily edit this show.
It's why we turn off the heat in the house before we record, so you don't hear our fan blowing. And it's why I'm wrapped in a blanket and a big sweatshirt, because it's cold in here.
You make me sound like a monster. And this is everyone's always going to be able to know whether this was a winter episode or not. Because if it's a winter episode, Arielle complains about how cold it is, even though it's not cold and it's totally fine.
My feet are cold.
You're shirking your duty.
Yeah. Oh, what are we here to talk about?
I don't know. What are we here to talk about?
We're here to talk about modern adaptations of Emma by Jane Austen.
We're still talking about Emma?
Part 2. Still Emma.
Still
so
Emma.
Much Emma.
Oh, it's a lot of Emma.
It's a lot of Emma.
But you know what? I don't have a problem with that.
Because you liked Emma.
I liked Emma.
Mm-hmm.
This is a cool thing because in the previous episode, when we did part 1, if you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1. I think part 2 is not going to make as much sense if you don't listen to part 1. We watched 5 different versions of Emma. What did we watch? There was like the 70s BBC miniseries. There was the Gwyneth Paltrow, 96 movie. There was the Kate Beckinsale 96 movie.
Yep.
There was the Romola Garai 2009 miniseries. And there was the 2020 Anya Taylor-Joy movie that came out.
Just rattled that off.
And, well, I mean, I've been living in this for weeks and weeks now.
I know. We've been in Emma for a long time.
And I'm fine with it because, again, I enjoy Emma.
Yeah.
The coolest thing happened. We liked all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we have many good things to say about them. We have some critical things to say as well, but we have some very good things to say about all of those. And so in this episode, I was really excited because maybe it would continue and we would like every version that we watched.
We didn't.
We didn't. That didn't happen.
It didn't happen. But we decided, so a lot of times we talk about things chronologically. We decided that didn't make a lot of sense for this one because it would mean we hate to end on a negative. We always feel sad when we end on something that we didn't like. So we decided for this episode, we would talk about things in the order in which we liked them, starting with the worst and ending with the best. And frankly, it was not hard to put these things in the proper order.
I like when we don't really have to haggle over this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's more like, which was our least favorite? No, we're aligned on that.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of alignment on this one.
Yeah.
So the only spoiler I will say is that Clueless does appear on this list.
Mhm.
You're going to have to wait to find out where, though, before you get started, because I think you'd like to get started.
Mhm.
I will just say these are, I would probably say, like the 5 most readily available versions.
Oh, yeah. There's probably other ones in other languages.
A little more obscure.
Yeah.
Like we only picked one that was not like a Western production
Mhm.
because it's Bollywood and we fucking love Bollywood.
Yeah.
So that's
never miss an excuse to watch a Bollywood movie.
never. I think maybe once we did,
Yeah.
but not this time. No, we did. Honestly, the one that we didn't watch.
There was a Parent Trap.
No, there were like a bunch of Parent Traps. I was gonna say I think it was either Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility. I think it was Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah.
There is a Bollywood version
Gotcha.
that we didn't watch, and I still regret it. And I think maybe we should go back at some point and do a follow up.
Okay.
But
we'll
we
talk about it off
We did a
air.
Bollywood Emma.
Okay.
So
Yes,
that's
we
in
did.
there.
So the first one that we're going to talk about, frankly, this always happens. This always happens. We make a list. We make these lists like months in advance, and we do the research on like what exists, and we're like, okay, we're going to watch these things.
And then one day I'm on Amazon Prime.
And then literally at the last minute, Jeremy stumbles across something on Amazon Prime and says, we have to watch this. And I say, I don't want to. And in the case of this, we even watched like 5 minutes of it, and I was like, I don't want to watch this. And he was like, okay, we won't watch this. We won't talk about it. And then like 2 days later, he was like, we have to watch it. And we're watching it right now.
Can I make a confession?
Yes.
When we had that first conversation and we watched 5 minutes of it, and you
Yeah.
were like, I don't want to watch this. And I said, okay. In the back of my head, I knew in a day or two, I am going to bring it up again.
Yeah.
And we're going to watch the whole thing. I needed to let it marinate a little bit.
But I said no the second time too. You just said, we're doing it.
Okay. And then we talked about it and you were very easily swayed.
That's fine.
Because I told you didn't have to pay 100% attention to it.
I
did.
I just felt bad that I argue with you sometimes a lot when you tell me we have to watch something. So I was trying to modify that behavior, which is why I said yes more easily.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because it's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Here's the deal. I am glad we watched Jane Austen's Emma, a musical romantic comedy 2018.
I kind of am too, because we found out some stuff about it that made me laugh.
Mhm.
Okay, so do you want to give a little tiny bit of background?
So this is a musical that is on Amazon Prime Video, and I knew nothing about it. The only thing I knew about it is that it showed up on Amazon Prime right next to Pride and Prejudice, the musical. And I thought to myself, these have to be related.
Mhm.
Turns out they are.
Mhm.
They were created by the same person, a guy named Paul Gordon. Sorry, I misspoke. That is not his name. His full name is Tony nominee Paul Gordon. And I know nothing about this man. All I knew at that point was that he made a musical about Emma. He also made a musical of Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, he's apparently the Andrew Davies of musical theater, because what did we discover? He had done Sense and Sensibility. He
Pride
did
and
Emma,
Prejudice,
Pride and
Emma.
Prejudice, and then his most famous one was Jane Eyre, which I knew of. Like that one was on Broadway. The rest of them were not. So I
Yeah.
guess this is his thing. He likes to do these novels as musicals. We've only seen this one. I would put a lot of money on them all sounding kind of the same.
I mean, you only have one piece of evidence for that, and that's that every
song-
single song sounds exactly the same. You turned to me at one point. I wrote this down. You turned to me at one point about an hour and a half in and said, because this is 2 hours long, by the way.
Yeah.
Is this a reprise? And I said, I don't fucking know, because every song sounds the same.
So did you have more background?
I don't have a lot. No, that's the thing. I think you actually have more background about it.
Okay.
Because the only thing I knew about it is that this was this mystery. It's a mystery box. I couldn't even find much about it. There was no Wikipedia page for it. It exists. It's suddenly on Amazon Prime. I'm thinking like, these are actors in front of cameras. It's in a theater. There's no audience.
Yeah.
But it seems like this was designed for an audience. I don't know when this first premiered. I don't know whether this is the original cast. I don't know when it was shot. All I had were questions.
Yeah, so
I had no answers, only questions.
I was able to kind of piece this together a little bit from numerous different websites. So this musical premiered, I think, in 2006-ish.
I think that's what it was.
In San Francisco or the Bay Area somewhere.
More than a decade ago.
Yeah, like a
let's
long
be clear.
time ago, and has been done in readings. It's like basically been in process, like in development since 2006. Because we found out also, and we'll come back to this in a minute, apparently the guy that plays Mr. Elton has played Mr. Elton in every single production of this musical.
Which made a lot of sense
Which
when
made
we
a lot
found
of
it out.
sense. So I'll come back to that in a second. So this guy, Paul Gordon, from his own website, because I was a little bit confused if this was like a filmed version of the original production or when this was. Did they do a run of this somewhere? Because I couldn't find any record of anybody like actually performing this musical like in a theater, like for an audience, like with paying customers. So Paul Gordon founded a website. He has a belief that musicals should be more accessible to everyone, even those who can't physically attend the theater. And he has a website.
Big musicals like Hamilton and Cats.
No, his musicals.
Oh, okay. That's different.
So he has a website called streamingmusicals.com where you can go and purchase, either rent or buy, like streaming versions of musicals that you can watch in your home. I forget the one that was on like the front page, but it was like $40. It was like a lot of money to buy. This one was not as much to buy. But I think I kind of read between the lines, and basically what they did was they produced this version of this musical specifically to be filmed for streamingmusicals.com. That's what I think happened. And somehow it ended up on Amazon Prime. This is not like this cast was a production that they normally did in a run of however many weeks or months in front of an audience. I think they rented out a theater just for this and rehearsed it for, I would say, a short period of time and then performed it. Which is odd. It gave it an odd feel because it's like ostensibly a live production, but it sounds like they never actually performed this like in front of an audience, which made it feel very strange,
Well,
like not to have that feedback.
It made it feel dead.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a big problem.
Yeah, and then side note.
And then I have a side note to your side note.
So I have a side note. We were watching this and Jeremy was getting annoyed because the production was really strange and the way it was shot was weird. And then he goes, and why is there a pole right in the middle of the stage?
Poles. There's 2 poles on either side.
And that like tweaked this memory in my mind. It was like Proust and his Madeleines.
I'm going to argue with you for a second. That's not how it went down.
Okay.
Here's how it went down. You did the research and you found out the theater that it was shot in.
Yes.
And
like
you said,
simultaneously, I was like, oh, the West Side Theater. I feel like I know that theater.
And then you said to me, I think I've been in that theater.
Yes.
And then I said to you, separate from all of that, going, and why are there these 2 weird poles, like these 2 support beams on stage?
Yeah.
And then you got very excited.
It was like this sort of simultaneous line of inquiry. That I was remembering I had been to the West Side Theater, but I couldn't quite remember like why or what I had seen there. And then you said the thing about the poles, and just this memory, this like rush of memory came flooding back to me, and I was like, I have been to that theater. I used to write reviews for a theater website that paid me in free tickets, which I don't think is legal. They sent me to see a play at this theater. It was called Dust. It was terrible. But I remember writing in my review, why does everybody have to stand behind the poles that are for some reason in the middle of the stage at this tiny little theater? And I went and pulled up my review that I had written in like 2004. And sure enough, I was like, why does everyone have to stand by the poles in the theater? It was this it was so funny. It was
little
like,
known fact, that's what you sounded like 15 years ago.
It's not. But it was really funny. Anyway, I hope somebody else finds that funny that's not me. I thought it was pretty funny.
I think it's pretty funny.
So what was your side note to my side note?
It's actually a separate side note. Have you ever heard of the concept of like the third place?
No.
Like people have a third place.
I don't know
Like
what that is.
everyone has 2 places.
Okay.
Normally, not in COVID times, but like people have one place, which is their home. And then
Okay.
what's the other place?
Work?
Yeah. So a lot of businesses try to do this thing where they try to come up with the third place. They want to be the third place that people go.
Like
that
your
people
happy
spend.
place.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be Target.
Sure. For you, it would be Target. Which company do you feel like has been the most successful at becoming this third place? Because I'll tell you.
Disney?
Starbucks.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Right? I feel like what Paul Gordon wants to do with streamingmusicals.com is he really wants, from what you've told me and from what I've read of it, it really seems like he wants it to be like people have the right to see musicals, but they're only going to see the musicals we make for streamingmusicals.com. And I foresee a future. I am not saying this is what he actually said, but this is what I hear in my head. You can, if you want to experience musicals, there are a few great places you can go for it. You could go to Broadway.
Yeah.
You could go to the West End. Or you could go to streamingmusicals.com,
Yes.
which surely eventually will be just as big an institution as Broadway or the West End.
Or like frankly many other like theaters worldwide that are currently doing this and like filming their productions and putting them online. Like the National Theatre in London is doing it, like the Met does it, like a lot of different theaters do it with very high quality productions. This is not that.
No.
Okay.
We've spent a lot of time not talking about it. I'm going to say one thing before we really dig into it. I feel like we're going to dunk on it pretty hard.
Yeah.
I want to be clear who we're not dunking on.
Who?
We are not dunking on the performers.
Okay.
I really genuinely feel like we're not. Even if we have bad things to say about the performances, I don't think you and I hold the performers responsible for this. Do you? Do you?
No, I guess not. I mean, they're just working actors. Like they're just trying to make a buck.
They're doing their thing.
And I turned to you at one point and I was like, I probably should know the answer to this, but like I genuinely don't. Like, do they think it's good or do they know it's bad? Because I just don't know. I guess I feel like I'm probably seeing things through rose-colored glasses because I feel like everything I've worked on was good, but maybe I'm the one who is fooling myself, you know?
I mean, I think
I don't know.
Every day, I think we're doing a good job doing this podcast. That's
Yeah.
that's how these things work. You have to. The delusion is part of it.
Yeah.
You have to embrace a little bit of delusion in order to do anything creative.
Yeah.
Because someone's not going to like it.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
So we are the people who did not like this production.
Okay, so they made a production. This guy, Paul Gordon, made a musical of Emma and in a baffling choice, set it in the 50s.
How is that baffling? We know exactly why they did it.
Because the costumes were cheaper?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think he seems to think that he did. I mean, basically, he made a big deal on his website about how they had updated the setting to the 50s to make it more, I guess, relevant. But and he made, as I say, he made a big deal about this, that he kept the language. They kept the language like you're doing.
Did he specifically say that on the
did.
website?
Yes, like as if you're
Jesus.
doing a production of Shakespeare, but you set it, wherever. So like I did a production of Shakespeare, but I set it in the 60s.
In Romeo plus Juliet, they say swords, but they're guns called
Right.
swords.
But like, I don't know. I guess my feeling is that the language of Jane Austen is not different enough to our language of today to provide that like interesting contrast. It just is 90% of it is just how we would talk, and then the 10% of it, which is specifically about like their sort of mores and ways of being, it just seemed odd.
Yeah, I mean, that's bullshit. Like, let me just going to call that right out. I didn't know until this moment that he said that on his website.
Yeah.
That is bullshit. The language in this is not Jane Austen language.
Yeah.
Like some of it is.
Some of it is.
Some of it is directly from the book, but a lot of it isn't.
A lot of it isn't. And that was the stuff that didn't ring true was his language, because I think he might not be a very good writer.
Well, no, there's that part of it, but then there's also dialogue that is actually from the original text,
Yeah.
which doesn't make sense in the context now.
Right.
Like the one that we called out was like, when they're going to the Christmas party and someone talks about, I think what Miss Bates is talking about how they call the carriage.
They call the carriage. Like, what?
It's like, you mean a car?
You mean a
Because it's
car?
the 50s?
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, there's little moments like that where someone says something that wouldn't really be relevant in that time period, but there's tons of dialogue that's not period accurate
or
to
there's like,
Jane Austen.
There's like a whole song about letters, like writing letters and getting letters and talking to your relatives, but it's like they had phones. It's the 50s.
This entire production, this entire script suffers from a really bad disease, which is why the fuck is this a song?
Yeah.
Itis. That is why is it a song? Sometimes the song makes sense. Sometimes I buy that the person is moved and the emotion is too big for talking, so it becomes a song.
Mr. Knightley has a big showstopper song called Emma,
Which-
about being in love with Emma.
Which actually was okay.
It was fine.
It was okay.
It was all right.
Like,
And then it was reprised like 3 times.
I would call the quality of the music in this like competent.
Yeah.
I think it's competent.
It's-
Like
I mean, it's
I can't
definitely-
write this kind of shit.
Yeah.
He clearly was able to sit down and write music and put words to the music, and only every now and then did the words not really fix the meter of the music.
Yeah.
Like I think he was trying to have them say too many words in too short a period of time. But it's
Yeah.
not like Henry Hill in Music Man. Wait, Henry Hill? Hank Hill.
Hank
Hill's-
Hank Hill's from King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Henry Hill is from Goodfellas.
Okay.
Harold Hill is from The Music Man.
Thank you. Okay, so it's not like Music Man. It's not like Harold Hill. It's not like that. It's not like the kind of thing where it's patter, you know? No, this is like genuinely the words don't fit into the time that he has given the actors to say the words.
Yep.
But it's competent. I can't do that. I can't do the thing he's doing. He can clearly sit down and write a musical. I just don't know that it's like a very good musical, but he can do it.
Yeah.
It takes a certain level of talent. This is a mess. It's a mess from beginning to end.
It was just funny from time to time because once I realized what theater they were in, because sometimes Emma she got a powerful set of lungs on her. God bless her. Like she's got a talent. Like she's a talented singer, but she hit these big notes, and I was like, I would turn to you and just say, that theater's very small.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot, and so like. I would say the number one distraction for me, and you pointed this out too, was that the accents started bad and got worse.
I think they got tired.
They got tired, but because as you pointed out, like they probably didn't just perform this straight through in 2 hours. They were probably like shooting all day or for multiple days.
Yeah. Because again, no audience.
No audience, so you can start and stop.
When something is written with the idea that an audience is going to be present, when you don't have an audience, it robs it. It feels dead.
Yeah.
This was a zombie musical.
Which also occurred to me,
just
maybe that's
shambling
why
across the stage.
Maybe that's why they had those weird cue cards in between scenes, so that they actually could just like shoot a scene and not have to worry about getting people on and off the stage.
That's what I was saying. Like you never see entrances and exits, which like is something that I rail against in like traditional film.
But this is a theater.
But this
play.
is theater, so I expect people to enter and exit. That's how theater works.
Right. But instead we get these like little
title cards.
I feel like I haven't said anything substantial about like I feel
we
like
haven't
we're
really
just
talked
dunking
about
on
it. Okay, I want to talk about a few things.
Okay.
I have some notes right here. First thing, this was junk and I hated it. Second thing, the only good thing that's in it is Robert Martin. The character is Teflon. I enjoy Robert Martin in every version I've ever seen.
There you go.
I got no beef with him in this. The actor was great. The way he was written was great. He was the only genuinely funny thing in the entire show. That's not true. Harriet was funny a little bit.
She was okay.
Like a little bit. But it was these moments that I was so frustrated by because I could tell they were going for something that was very like quote unquote period accurate, which that whole concept was muddled in the course of the show. But Harriet did actually have a few good moments, but the moments she had that were good were all very modern feeling, which kind of worked against what the show was trying to do, which was frustrating. Can we talk about Mr. Elton?
Yeah, well, this is what I was going to say. We spent a good half hour trying to figure out if this was a conscious choice to make a musical of Emma, but about older people, because Emma looked kind of old from the beginning. Like I think it's just those fashions are very, and that type of makeup and hairstyling in like that 50s look is kind of aging, I think, because she's our age, so she would have been like 34.
Yeah, something like that.
And so that's a little bit old to play a 20-year-old, especially in close up, but that's okay. But like Mr. and Mrs. Weston were middle-aged, which they're kind of supposed to be. But then like Mr. Elton walked on stage and we were like, he's fully middle-aged. He's a middle-aged gentleman. Have they just aged everything up? Is that what this is about? It's not about young people anymore. We were genuinely a little bit confused if that was something they were doing on purpose. And then we found out.
Well, then we found out that he has been Mr. Elton in every production of this musical
For the last 15 years.
Right, which makes sense when you see how old he looks. Which is not it's not a gentleman's fault for looking old. That's totally fine.
I just wouldn't think of Mr. Elton as being that sort of like evergreen role that like one may play for decades, like Ted Neely playing Jesus Christ Superstar into his 70s. Like
here's the thing,
I'm confused about that.
Okay, but here's the thing.
And he wasn't that good.
He was fine. No, actually, I thought he was okay.
Okay.
He was okay. Here's the problem, though. You're bringing what you know about Emma to your viewing of watching this.
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Elton is supposed to be a younger man.
Yes.
So clearly, immediately, you've got your preconceived notion about who the character is, and you're not open to a new interpretation of the character.
I guess I'm not.
But then he has the line when he snubs Harriet at the dance, and there's the famous line where he says, "Oh no, I not me, an old married man. I can't dance with a single woman." that doesn't work
It doesn't work.
if he looks like an old married man.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all. And so that line is robbed of all of its meaning at that point. So that didn't work.
It didn't work.
I don't want to talk about this one anymore.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
it was junk, and I hated it, and I don't blame the actors for it. I think the whole thing was folly. This is folly.
I
It
just
shouldn't
think-
it shouldn't have been created. They are doing a live stage production with no audience. They're shooting it in a way that was baffling.
The whole process of how this came into being is very strange, and like not the way that I would consider the way to make theater, live theater. I mean, like, I was looking at like who worked on the production, like the accents were so bad, and like I said to you, like the purpose of an accent coach is not even necessarily to like tell you how to do an English accent. Like I've worked and seen work a wonderful accent coach coaching a whole cast of mostly Americans to do this like a very rural Irish accent, like a difficult accent. And she never does a line reading. Like she's I think sometimes people think of an accent coach as someone that like sits there and tells you how to say the line and you just say it back to them. Like it's almost more of a dramaturg. Like she provided all kinds of like materials and like resources for the actors to like listen to the accent, but like the purpose of it is again not to like teach you how to do an accent. It's to make everyone consistent with each other. So like one person might be doing one accent that they think of as an English accent, and another person might be doing an English accent that they think of as an English accent, and those two things might both be perfectly reasonable English accents, but like from two totally different like times and places and classes. And it's the job of the dialect coach to make sure everyone's consistent between each other if they're all supposed to be from the same time and place, which these people are.
The run you just went on talking about accents, I'm sure, was longer than any conversation they had about accent consistency.
It really suffered. I mean, accents, I think for me, I have a degree in dramaturgy, as I've mentioned many times. For me, accents fall into that realm, like into the research that you do to make a production feel true, and not to say realistic, but at least consistent to the world that you're trying to build. And I feel like I have a sensitive ear for accents, and a bad one really takes me out of something. And I didn't care for this, and it just I know I'm going on about this at length, but it just sort of highlighted to me like the rushed and unserious nature of the way that this was produced, and like maybe the sort of cynical nature of it too. You know what I mean? Like, oh, people love Jane Austen. Let's write a kind of a bad musical about Jane Austen characters and just throw it up and people will love it. Like, I don't know.
You don't get an A just for showing up.
Yeah, I feel that way.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's move on. 'Cause
Okay.
we've spent a lot of time talking about this
sorry.
one. No, I did the same thing. But let's move on to our next least favorite one. This one,
We were
okay.
split. We were a little split.
We were a little split, which I expected.
Yeah.
Because it relates to something we've talked about on the show before that we were also a little split on.
Yeah.
But whereas that one, I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
I really liked it. And you didn't really like it.
You didn't really like I
This
didn't really
one,
like it.
I didn't like, and you straight hated.
Well, because it was like we each moved downwards about 25%.
Yeah.
So I was at about 45%. So I moved way down, and
Yeah.
you were at about 75%. So you were, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is also one that I'm a little nervous about because I feel like this one has its fans.
Yeah.
Which would make sense because it was kind of a spin-off to something that has a lot of fans that I really liked. This was Emma Approved, the 2013 to 2014 YouTube series created by Bernie Sue, who was one of the co-creators of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries,
Right.
which he co-created with Hank Green. This is a very long YouTube series.
Yes. We watched the whole thing.
We watched all of it. We watched 80, 90 episodes of it because it's not just the way these work is it's not just the episodes of the show proper, but there's also the spin-offs and the extra ones that you can watch.
Yeah.
You have to watch all of it in order to get the story. And I wanted to like it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you seemed that invested in wanting to like it.
Well, I did not come down on the side of really enjoying the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. And I felt like the specific things that I didn't like about it were times 100 in this one. Like it had the same flaws, but they were worse. And therefore I really didn't like it. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think there are some really big things. Like I thought a lot about like what made the Lizzie Bennet Diaries work for me, and what were the things that were missing that made Emma Approved not work for me.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about format for a second.
Yeah.
So Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which I'm assuming if you haven't listened to our Pride and Prejudice Revisited, like I think
You could.
I don't want to go into a ton of detail on the stuff we talked about, but if you're interested, we do go into detail on like Lizzie Bennet Diaries in that episode. I think in part 3 or whatever. In the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, the entire conceit of the show is that Lizzie Bennet has a vlog.
Yes.
And she is doing her vlog. So you as a viewer are watching her vlog. And all the people, all the characters that are involved, every time you see them, it's because they are in one of her vlogs. And it even comes up in the show. And people talk about, like, oh, my family member saw the vlog and they know everything that you said. And that becomes a source of content. It is the fabric of the show that it is a vlog.
Yes.
And her profession is vlogger.
Yeah.
Which it makes sense because it was created by Hank Green. It was created by a vlogger. Like it that works. That to me worked in the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Emma Approved, though, is ostensibly the exact same format. They're doing vlogs. People are talking to camera. People are talking with each other. And the only thing the audience knows is what happens on camera.
Yeah.
The problem is Emma Woodhouse is not a vlogger. So how are we seeing this footage?
Yeah.
So what was the conceit that they came up with in the show for why this footage even exists?
She's in her office and she has put cameras in every room of her office, including like her coworkers' offices, because eventually there's going to be a documentary about how cool and interesting she is.
And I think about halfway through, it's implied that people are starting to see it.
Yeah.
Because they do start taking viewer questions.
Yes.
But it's not addressed in any way that is satisfying to me.
Yeah.
And certainly, I feel
certainly
like to
not
you.
to me.
Yeah, in the way that Lizzie Bennet Diaries was.
Yeah.
So, okay, we need to talk about it for a second. Who is Emma Woodhouse in Emma Approved?
She works with a guy named Alex Knightley. They have a business together, which frankly seems like a rich person's pastime because she's never seen to do any actual work. She does like matchmaking, party planning, and like life coaching. And that's like her business.
That's their business. So something is Emma Approved. Wink. Like that's... If she does an event, that event is Emma Approved.
And like if someone wears a dress she likes, she's like, ooh, nice dress, very Emma Approved. And at one point I said to you, can you imagine if you had someone that you had to interact with that every time they liked something, they spoke about themselves in the third person and said, ooh, that's very Emma Approved. And you were basically like, yeah, I can't imagine it. That would be terrible.
It sounds awful.
Yeah.
So that's the conceit. So... Whereas in Lizzie Bennet Diaries, anytime someone is like, oh, are we going to have this conversation in front of the camera? She says, yeah, this is part of my vlog. If you don't want it to be recorded, then we can have this conversation a different way. Like, that's part of the fabric of the show.
Yeah.
This one, though, you shouldn't be thinking about like personal privacy and like rights to someone's image or not signing releases. You shouldn't be thinking about that kind of stuff in the context of the story of Emma.
Yeah.
But it brings it up constantly because she's got cameras throughout the entire office, and they literally hire Jane Fairfax.
Oh my God.
I don't even want to get into all the details about how they've updated every single character, but I will say Jane Fairfax is this person that gets hired. The reason that Emma hates her is because Jane is really socially conscious and
like really smart, and she went to Oxford.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. And she's got a degree in like social justice, so I don't know why. She was a Rhodes Scholar, I think they said, and I don't know why she's working for a party planning company.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Well, she's working there because
to help her aunt,
Miss
who's
Bates,
Miss Bates,
who's Maddie Bates, who was actually like one of the only good.
She was actually really good and really funny.
She's the only. She was fine. We had no beef with Maddie Bates.
I'm sorry to. We may not come back to Maddie Bates, so I just want to say, like, she and Sophie Thompson were the two actresses playing Miss Bates, who like had a very distinctive style for the way that they spoke to their mother to try to get her attention because she's kind of deaf, and it was really funny. Miss Bates is also, I think, as you say, a Teflon character because every portrayal of Miss Bates is amazing.
At least interesting.
Yeah.
Even in the shitty musical, Miss Bates was fine.
She's fine.
I didn't really have a problem with her.
Anyway, I'm so sorry. So Jane Fairfax comes to work for them.
And she's like, are there cameras in every room? And like, I think Alex Knightley says to her, you get used to it. It's like, no, holy shit, fucking pump the brakes for a
They're
second.
like in her office, and she's like, wait, do I have to keep this camera turned on? And Emma's like, yes, you're required to keep it on at all times. She's like, oh God, like, it's terrible. This type of thing shouldn't make you, as you say, shouldn't make you think of like workplace labor law violation. Like that's not the. It should be interesting enough that that's not what I'm distracted by.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Where do we go from here? I know there are things you didn't like, so that's fine. Let's go through some of those.
I did not think the acting was very good.
Yep.
And I thought that it was written in a way that was not similar to the way people actually speak, which again felt distracting. And it was like they were simultaneously trying to be too modern and too tied to Jane Austen at the same time. Like they put in some weird extra plot lines that like were confusing and went nowhere and didn't make sense. But like at the same time, people were so formal with each other. It's always like Mr. and Miss this, and like everyone constantly refers to each other by their full name.
Frank Churchill was the most annoying.
Frank Churchill
with that. Everyone has to call him Frank Churchill
and Jane
all
Fairfax.
the time.
Jane Fairfax was always Jane Fairfax.
Yeah. It's like the people watching this know it's Emma.
Yeah,
they know it's Emma. Just do a different
stop.
thing.
Just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the way that some of the things were updated. Let's talk about Mr. Elton. I apologize. State Senator James Elton.
Oh my God.
So he's not a vicar anymore, but he's still he's
an
brought
important
in
person in the community.
So again, Emma is a professional matchmaker and party planner, so she is going to professionally match him, but she's going to match him with Harriet, her assistant who works for her.
And this is we are constantly told this is that like the highest profile client that she's ever worked with. State senator.
He is a state senator in California, and we couldn't get past it. We could not get past it.
Well, I can tell you why we couldn't get past it, because they called him Senator Elton constantly and referred to him as Senator Elton constantly. And we kept going, state senator.
Conservatively 200 times in the course of the show, he is referred to as Senator Elton.
Well, and he kept talking
conservatively, 1,700 times.
He kept talking about how he was
Probably
a politician, and like every line out of his mouth was like, "Well, as a politician, this, and as a politician, that." It's like, dude, you're a state senator.
Like when you're a state senator, you have another job.
You have another job. I'm pretty sure you do. Maybe I'm not totally sure about that, but I think you do.
My feeling is this. They decided they wanted to create this world, and they wanted to create these lives for all these characters. Like Frank Churchill, he's the kind of person who he owns a lot of stock in a company, and so he's a rich guy, and the tabloids are writing stories about him. But like the only people we ever see are the people in these offices. We never see people outside of that. We never see any of these tabloids. We never see any of these headlines. So all we have are a bunch of what feel to me like college students telling me that they're big important people.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And State Senator James Elton was the worst offender for all of this. And my feeling is, if you're just going to make all of this up, which is what writing is, what would do the job for you? What would make him high profile enough? Well, Senator is probably a little too much.
Too high.
But like House of Representatives, that's very high profile.
Yeah,
people know who are in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, or even like I don't know, like a young hot tech company CEO or something like that. Like they're in California. You know what I mean? Like something that's high profile.
They had to make him a politician,
senator.
And it doesn't work. And he's wearing wearing like a dress shirt where he's got the little like United States flag pin on his dress shirt.
But it doesn't have a pocket, so it's just like pinned to his shirt, and it looks so stupid. Nobody wears a pin like that. Oh my God. I know this is nitpicking, but I just like to think if I were doing something like this, I would notice the little details like that. And the more things like that you get, the more it looks like a student making this for a class project.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I don't want to spoil anything. We watched something that was literally students making this potentially for a class project that we liked better than this.
Yeah. Literally.
Yes.
Let me just run through my notes here. Okay, one note I did make, even though we were not super happy with the writing across all of everything, I counted 8 really solid jokes.
Good.
There were 8 times that I really laughed, that I thought I didn't think it was incompetent. I thought it was competent. I just really, really didn't like it. I don't know. I do want to stick on this for a second at the risk of spending 40 minutes talking, which we won't. The thing that's so frustrating is, again, the thing that worked about the Lizzie Bennett diaries for me is that the people making it have a lot of knowledge and expertise in the world in which the characters live, which is the world of vlogging.
Yeah.
So even though they were really exaggerating the world of vlogging, like the world of vlogging doesn't work the way it does in Lizzie Bennett diaries.
Yeah.
At least it was informed by reality.
Yeah.
This was not informed by reality.
Yeah.
Like, find me an event planner / matchmaker / life coach. Find me one of those businesses
Yeah.
that deals with state senators as their highest profile clients, and also Frank Churchill, who is, they keep telling me he's in tabloids. This is another thing. What is the most capricious thing that Frank Churchill does in the original story of Emma?
Oh, he when he goes to get his haircut.
Goes to get his haircut, and it's a scandal. And Mr. Knightley says, like, I can't believe he would do something that silly. That
Ride 16 miles to London to get his haircut.
how ridiculous.
But you know he didn't actually get his haircut, right? You know he went to buy the piano for Jane Fairfax.
No, I appreciate that, but it really doesn't. It doesn't matter what he actually did.
That's
What
fair.
matters is the way people respond
I just
to
want
it.
to make sure you know.
In this version, he has to, like, he cancels on something because he has to get a haircut, and they're having the conversation as if that's crazy. But like in this world, it is not crazy that
might
he would
just
get a
need to
haircut.
get a haircut.
Like, they're telling me he's this like rich playboy kind of guy. It is not surprising at all, and shouldn't be to anyone, that he would just drop an appointment to get a haircut.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, I know he wasn't getting a haircut.
He
was buying Jane Fairfax a laptop.
We talked so much about the oh my god, the stupid laptop. I don't want to nitpick. The way that they modernized certain plot lines did not work and was distracting, and we were just sitting there talking about it over and over and over again, and that surely that's not what they want. They don't
Right.
want us like trying to parse the reality of someone buying a laptop for someone else to use for work, when surely if they had an old laptop that they were using for work, their work should have taken on the responsibility of purchasing them.
It's not the same as someone who likes playing the piano and suddenly is gifted a piano or
Yeah.
pianoforte.
Or pianoforte.
I just want to be specific.
I have a genuinely serious criticism.
I was wondering when you were going to get to this.
I don't want to spend too much time on it.
And I feel like this is one of those things where it's like it's two sides of a coin, where one side is a good thing
Yeah.
and the other side is a bad thing.
It is good that this is a multiracial production that includes people of many different ethnicities.
Mhm.
It is unfortunate and a bad look that the two black characters are Miss Bates and Jane Fairfax, who are constantly clearly being denoted as the people of lower class from everybody else in this
Mhm.
world. It's an even worse look, and I would say like problematic to the point of being actually racist. The conversation that Frank and Emma have about like Jane being ugly, essentially, like that is something that happens in the book Emma, that they're kind of making fun of her looks, and that like she doesn't look well, especially compared to Emma, who's so beautiful. But like, man, that's a bad look. Man, that's a bad look about the one black character, like given the context of like black women's appearances being so politicized, and so, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sweetie, we already talked about
it's
it.
so unfortunate. I don't think they meant it in a bad way. There's a whole they turned I think it's like the first dance, instead of a dance, they're it's like a charity auction, but they're like auctioning off themselves, and like Jane has some dialogue about like, I don't want to be auctioned. Like, I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't want to do that. That doesn't seem right. And basically the scene ends with Emma saying like, well, get over yourself. You're going to do it anyway. And like, is that
Jane
kind
of goes along with
it. And
it.
she just kind of goes along with it. And it's like, okay, I'm uncomfortable. Here's what it is. I'm uncomfortable now as a viewer. I'm now uncomfortable. And I don't think that this was intended to make people like uncomfortable about like microaggressions. Like, I don't think that was the point. So, I don't know. I liked Miss Bates. I liked her doing the like doing an impression of Mrs. Bates, who's never seen. And at one point we were like, oh, she's Jamaican, 'cause
Yeah.
she does her accent. That part was very funny.
It was very funny, and it felt very unexpected and real.
And that felt very real, like suddenly very real.
Mhm.
Like that was something that actress knew of, like from her family, maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to look. I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm trying to think of like what's a nice thing I can say. And then the unfortunate thing is, for every nice thing I can say, it makes me think of like 5 problems that I had.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think this was successful. I know we even felt differently about it, and I didn't like it. I'll say one nice thing. For all the things, for all of the modernization throughout it that I think didn't work, like they constantly were talking about the opening of the restaurant box with 2 X's.
With 2 X's, box.
Just call it a different thing. It's totally fine.
fine.
Like anyone who really knows the story of Emma knows that you're doing Box Hill. Like that's but if someone doesn't really know Emma, it's okay. Like you can pick a better name for it.
Or
But-
honestly, just call the restaurant Box Hill. Like that
Sure.
would be okay too.
Sure. The way they handled Harriet getting snubbed by Mr. Elton, I thought worked really well.
Yeah, that worked.
Because basically what ends up happening is he's planning an event. This is his engagement party, right?
Yes.
Oh, he also
yeah.
he doesn't get
tie-in.
he doesn't get engaged to Mrs. Elton. He gets engaged to Caroline Lee, who is Caroline Bingley
It's crossover.
from Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
It's crossover.
Which, like, at first I had a problem with because I literally I found myself saying, like, well, Caroline Bingley and Mrs. Elton are totally different characters. They're not the same. They're not. Wait a minute. This character doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
This is fine.
Does not matter.
I'm okay with this. This is totally fine. This is not fair for me to have a problem with this. And it's cool tie-in for people who really like Lizzie Bennet Diaries. And I found myself having a lot of opinions about it. So clearly, I'm a fan of Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
There you go.
Because it was doing that to me.
It's fine.
But basically, what ends up happening is Harriet thinks she's going to have a seat. She thinks she's going.
She thinks she's a guest.
She thinks she's a guest, and Mr. Elton goes, "Oh no, staff stay in the kitchen.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a seat." And then Mr. Knightley comes in and he says, "Oh, Harriet was going to come as my +1." And I literally wrote down, like, logic about seating charts aside, I like how they handle Harriet getting snubbed, because it's not like if he had an extra seat for because basically Mr. Elton's whole argument is they don't have the room.
Yeah.
There is no seat. But if Mr. Knightley says that she's his +1, the seat suddenly exists.
So we just went into seating logistics, even though you said you would not.
No. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Like that's what like I shouldn't be thinking about that kind of stuff.
Right.
So logic about seating charts aside. I'm saying this was my note. This was what I wrote down.
Right. No, I
I
understand.
like how they handled Harriet getting snubbed.
Yes, because I think that is like a realistic modern updating of Mr. Elton thinking Harriet is too low class for him. Is like, oh no, she's the help. Like, why would I even think about her?
Yeah.
She's the help.
That was good writing.
Yes.
And there are examples of that throughout. I think
Yes.
there are a lot of good examples of good writing, but I think unfortunately there's also a lot of examples of poor writing,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole thing just does not gel. And it bummed me out because I wanted to like it because I really liked Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
Okay, but on a happier note, let's move on to something that we liked.
Is this where we cross over into we kind of liked it?
Yeah, I think so. Or we really liked it.
Yeah.
Even. Okay.
I didn't really like it.
Okay, so what is it that we're about to talk about?
This is Aisha,
Mm-hmm.
2010. This is the Bollywood one.
Yeah.
Here's a couple things about it. As I said, it came out in 2010. It was directed by Rajshri Oja. It was written by Devika Bhagat and Ritu Bhatia, and it starred Sonam Kapoor as Aisha Kapoor,
Mm-hmm.
which is that's weird. And B, we've seen her on the show before
Mhm.
because she was in Players,
Mhm.
which we talked about when we did our Italian Job episode.
Yeah. Yeah, what'd you think?
I wanted to love this one.
Well, I mean, I was disappointed because there was not very much singing and dancing.
I was just
There was not any singing at all, really.
like I enjoyed it more than it's number 3 on the list because I enjoyed it more than Emma approved.
Mhm.
But like I kind of liked it. We kind of liked parts of it. I didn't love it. It didn't really stick with me afterwards. It's okay.
Well, it's funny because I think, like, as we were watching it, I was trying to decide if it was a modern Indian adaptation of the book Emma by Jane Austen, or is this the Indian remake of Clueless? Because it was sort of 50-50 on where it was drawing inspiration from. Like, the opening scene where she's, like, driving through town, like, badly is, like, straight out of Clueless. It's like the
Yes.
opening scene from Clueless.
Mhm.
And they kind of switched back and forth, which I kind of liked. Like, I liked that I got the impression that they really took a lot of inspiration from Clueless for this movie.
They clearly did.
But I also thought that there was some stuff in it that was directly from Emma, the
Mhm.
book. So I think it was about 50-50. It was really interesting the thing that I found fascinating and that I wished that I had more context for, which of course I don't because we don't research anything.
That's unfair.
Yeah.
I have something from Wikipedia right here,
Yeah.
which
Um,
the film released in 2010 to mixed to positive critical reviews, eventually becoming a semi-hit at the box office.
there you go.
So essentially, it was a movie.
Yeah. I think that Jane Austen can be really successful when you really, really plant the story in like a really specific time and place, because her books are set in a very specific time and place. For example, Clueless is a really specific time and place. Like,
Yeah.
you know who those people are. And this was that too. I think I didn't know enough about the society and the rule. Like, there were some things that were very clear, like her friend, the Harriet equivalent. It was very, very clear that she was lower in status. Like, I don't even know necessarily because of like who she was or who her family was. Like, they're middle class, and she comes from like a village. Like, she doesn't come from the big city. And that was made very clear, even just by the way that she dressed. And like at one point she says, you know, I'm not as sophisticated as you. You know, I don't speak English. There was a lot of English in this movie.
Yeah.
She also looked a lot like Brittany Murphy.
She really did.
She really did. She was so cute, like super adorable. And actually, I thought Sonam Kapoor looked a little bit like Alicia Silverstone, just like with some of her facial expressions. We haven't talked about Clueless yet, so it's a little bit weird. But anyway, like this family was very rich. They lived in Delhi. She went shopping at the mall, like with her good friend, who also turned out to be Mrs. Elton.
Well, no, we got to dig into her a little bit.
Who, Pinky?
Yeah, we have to talk about Pinky.
Okay,
because
I
feel
loved
like,
Pinky.
I feel like Pinky is kind of the Rosetta Stone for this movie if we're talking about it as an adaptation, because Pinky, I think, proves that this is an adaptation of both Emma and Clueless.
Yes.
Because in Clueless, which we'll talk more about at length in a little bit.
In a second, yeah.
In Clueless, you have your like three main girls who make up the posse.
Yes.
Right? And so who are their equivalents in the book, Emma?
Emma.
Yeah.
Mrs. Weston, I guess, kind of.
No, she definitely is.
And Harriet.
Yeah. In this one, you still have those three, and they fill kind of the same roles, but you also have a Mrs. Weston character.
Right, because her aunt is Mrs. Weston.
Right.
Like she set up her aunt, and that's how the story begins.
So like as an adaptation of Emma, yeah, like Mrs. Weston is there. She hasn't been translated into one of her friends, but she still has that friend, which is Clueless.
Yes.
And that to me is like that to me proves the whole thing. Like it's both. And we just have to continue on knowing that it is both of those things.
Yes.
They clearly drew as much inspiration from Emma as they did from Clueless.
Yes. Pinky's wardrobe is just amazing. Pinky is, as if we didn't mention, Pinky is Aisha's best friend. And her, like, they kind of make fun of how she dresses because she's kind of out there. But at one point, she's wearing this dress with, like, an enormous screen printed image of a tree frog on the back. Like, it just looked like a plain dress. And then she turned around and I was like, oh my God, I love her dress. It was so good.
Did you have a moment where you're like, oh, what she's wearing is boring in this scene? Oh, thank God.
Oh, thank God, a tree frog. Yeah, like the clothes were really important in this movie. It was fun to look at. There were some plot devices, like when they get stranded at the hotel in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of the night. That was really strange.
The humor is forced in this movie.
Yeah,
I didn't find it that funny. There might have been like a couple of moments that were funny, but
her dad is really funny.
Her dad was charming.
Yeah,
I didn't find him funny. I found him charming.
Remember he had the servant who followed him around.
Yes,
who was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he gives her like this pep talk about like, go find your man. Who, by the way, like Mr. Knightley equivalent in this is so very cute.
Arjun is extremely handsome.
He's very adorable.
Very handsome, very charismatic.
And the Robert Martin equivalent, whose name is Sarab, is just like this cute, adorable kid from Shefali's town. And Shefali is Harriet. And Aisha has kind of built her up to think like she's too good for a boy from the town. And then they get together at the end. And he's perfectly, like, he's not like poor and beneath them. He's like an accountant, you know, like he's a nerd. He's a nerd, yeah, but he's not like a rich boy.
Which is kind of what they did in Emma Approved as well. We didn't really talk about Robert Martin in that.
Oh yeah, he's like the IT guy.
Yeah, he's like, he is a nerd and this guy's a nerd. But again, Robert Martin is Teflon.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed him in this a great deal. Like, there's a lot that I enjoyed about this. Like, I thought Sonam Kapoor's Emma was good. Shefali was great.
Yeah, she's great.
She was one of the best parts of the movie. Arjun, our Mr. Knightley, he was one of the best parts of the movie. He's really good. Your Mr. Kapoor, Mr. Woodhouse, he's very good.
Yeah.
They kind of, if I say that it diverges from the text, I don't necessarily mean that in a good or a bad way.
Yeah.
It just is a thing you can do in an adaptation. You're not required to do everything exactly the same, especially if you're doing something where you're transplanting the era and context of the story.
Sure.
You can change stuff. That's totally fine. So when I talk about this as like making a change, I'm not necessarily saying it's good or bad. I just don't know how well it worked on its own merits.
Mm-hmm.
So Frank Churchill in this is a guy named Drew.
Mm-hmm.
He is her aunt's new husband's son.
Right.
He's a monster.
He's the worst.
He is a terrible person who gets a happy ending.
Yeah.
Like there is also a Jane Fairfax character.
Yeah, she's American.
Yeah, she's I think she was Australian
Okay. She's from an English
in
speaking
the
country.
story. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's very
I thought she was from New York, but
she-
it does not matter.
she's very beautiful. No, she might have been now
I
that
think
you say that.
She's from like the New York office.
She's barely in it.
It
though.
doesn't really matter.
That's the important thing. Is like she is the Jane Fairfax character, but she's not Jane Fairfax because she's barely in the story.
Yeah.
She's there a little bit, and she eventually doesn't matter.
Well, except like it was so funny because the last scene is her wedding, and they do this big dance, but because she's not a very important character, like she's in like the background of the dance, like in her full like beautiful bridal outfit, and it was just so funny to see like the person who is the bride getting completely upstaged because she's not a major character.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
But like, and everyone couples off at the end.
Yeah.
Everyone. So by the end of it, Aisha is with Arjun.
Yes.
So Emma's with Mr. Knightley. I'll say their character equivalents. Harriet is with Robert Martin.
Yep.
Mr. and Mrs. Weston are still together.
Yep.
So they're a couple. They're dancing there in the wedding. Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax have gotten married. You know, it is their wedding.
It's their wedding.
But then there's Mr. and Mrs. Elton. And you said earlier that Pinky is kind of Mrs. Elton.
Yeah, I mean she is Mrs. Elton because
Yeah.
she marries Mr. Elton.
But her story starts completely differently because she starts as Aisha's best friend.
just her friend. Yeah.
And they like their friendship hits the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that ends up happening is our version of Mr. Elton, who's a guy named Rondir, who is just a gigantic nerd. And
he's just a jerk. He owns like a candy factory. Like he's well to do.
he's not even necessarily, he's just kind of a douche.
Yeah.
Like that's his problem. He's just a little douchey and a little goofy, and no one respects him.
Yeah.
But I actually thought one of the nicest parts of the movie was Pinky and Rondir getting together.
Yeah, because they sort of bond over the fact that Aisha is mean to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked.
Yeah.
And it was going off the beaten path, and it was kind of forging its own path.
Yes.
And not being a strict by the numbers Emma adaptation.
Yeah.
And not even Clueless. Like this was one of the few things that wasn't Clueless or Emma.
Right.
And I was here for
I
it.
thought it worked pretty well.
I thought I was fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we need to talk about the product placement. And I think this is just a cultural thing. I'm not sure. But there was a lot of credits at the beginning for all of their brand partners.
The movie was sponsored by L'Oreal.
The movie is a L'Oreal ad.
Yeah.
It is a commercial for L'Oreal. Like, don't get it twisted. There are many, many scenes of beautiful women putting on makeup, and they're all holding their L'Oreal products as delicately as possible to make sure that the brand is facing the camera, right side up and legible.
Listen.
But at the end of the day, I don't know. I didn't love it, even though there was stuff I liked in it. There wasn't enough singing, and
Yeah, for being like 2.5 hours long, it did not have enough singing for me.
yeah.
It didn't have any singing. It had some dancing, but really no singing.
And I feel like we're just being naive about what Bollywood has become. Because
Yeah.
I think the Bollywood that we fell in love with was like 70s Bollywood.
Oh, well, 70s Bollywood or like 90s Bollywood, because in this movie, they talk about Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gone. They're like, oh, have you seen it? And then
Yeah.
when she's like really sad, she's watching it on the couch and like crying. And it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the Bollywood we like. And I guess modern Bollywood is more like, oh no, they're songs.
But it's more like a music video.
Yeah, like there is someone in the scene who is singing the song kind of like diegetically, but it's a music video.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. I didn't love it.
We didn't
It's
like it as
fine.
much. Yeah,
I don't plan on I got no real beef with it, but I don't plan on watching it again.
that's fair.
Would you like to move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Second favorite. I mean, this is going to give away the fact that Clueless is our favorite.
I mean, I don't know that anyone was questioning that.
Yeah, let's talk about YouTube again.
Yay!
So we talked at great length, about Emma Approved and how it just didn't do it for us. And you mentioned there's another one that did a better job.
Mhm.
That was literally, from everything we can tell, a student production.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, these are clearly NYU students, like just doing the thing in their dorm room,
Uh-huh.
which is part of what made it really charming for me is that they weren't actors pretending to be college students who are actually actors in their 30s. They were actual college students in actual dorms behaving like college students actually would.
Mhm.
And I found it quite naive and charming.
So this is the Emma Agenda.
Yes.
This came out in 2017. It had like, I think I want to say 60 episodes or something like
Yeah,
that.
something
And
like
they're all
that.
pretty short. This was written and directed by Jules, I'm going to go ahead and say Pigeot. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. But we have a number of people in it who I've never seen before because, as you say,
They're not really
they're
actors.
not actors.
Some of them are.
Some of them are. I looked up a few of them, and like maybe a couple of them are primarily actors, and then a few of them are something, but also try to act on the side, and then a few of them are
Or
just
not.
like, oh, I am in grad school to be a psychologist
Yeah.
at this point. Like they're not. The acting bug didn't grab them. So let's talk about the context of this for a 2nd. This is kind of like the Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
Yeah.
Where the central conceit is that our main character, Emma Woodhouse, played by Celis Maria Vargas, has a vlog.
Yes.
And the vlog has existed before the first episode.
Yeah.
We're coming in kind of in media res.
Coming in hot.
Where we know as her, quote unquote viewers, we know her already.
Yeah.
And we know her context and we know her friends and we know the people she talks about. So this is where we enter the story. We have entered the story right at the beginning of the Emma story.
Yes.
So there's a lot of vlogging in this. But what's the one thing it does that we just appreciated so much as opposed to the Emma approved?
It had scenes that weren't vlogs, that were just scenes of like stuff happening.
They just shot actual scenes of people having conversations, things happening, and then the fallout would happen in the vlogs.
Right.
But you never knew. The next episode might be a vlog or it might just be
People
a scene
on the street. And because they're clearly, I think, NYU students, like we had a lot of scenes in dorms, we had a lot of scenes like walking around Union Square Park.
We assume.
Well, I mean, that scene where she's sitting on the bench and
Yeah.
Oh God, what's his name? He comes up to her.
Phil Elton.
Phil Elton comes up to her and is like, "Hey, I'd like to be friends." That's Union Square. Like I know that park.
That's fair.
Like I know where they are, which is why I said I think this is
I lived in New York.
But that's why I said I think these are NYU students because that is
Yeah.
that neighborhood.
Can I get some of the negative things out of the way first?
Sure.
This is amateurish.
Yeah.
Extremely. Like it feels like a student project.
It is a student project.
Yeah. And really, and as I say, it feels like it. It's not shot incredibly well. You can't always tell what people are saying because the sound isn't always fantastic. The acting isn't great because these are not all
up and down.
professional actors.
Yeah.
They do this one thing that I felt like I could read their minds. Because we have the vlogs, and the way the vlogs are done is the camera is always locked down. It's always on a tripod. But then in the scenes, all the scenes are handheld. Everything's handheld. And I'm sure that the conversation was, how can we visually tell the audience that there's a difference between the scenes and the vlogs?
Yeah.
Well, we can do it handheld. That's a way to do it. The problem is it is incredibly shaky and just not really well done.
Yeah.
And I got a little sick watching it.
I'm so sorry.
And I found it distracting. And it's the kind of thing where if we'd, I'm sure if they had sat down to have a conversation with someone else and gotten some more feedback, someone might have said, you could still shoot on tripods, but make it look different. There are lots of different ways to tell the audience that this is not a vlog at this point. The fact that the characters aren't acknowledging the camera might be a big clue that it's not a vlog at this point.
They're doing their best.
But do you want me to take us through the story for a second?
Sure.
All right. So here are our main characters. There is Emma, and she has a roommate who has just moved out because she moved in with her boyfriend, and that was her roommate, Taylor, who we don't really see very much.
No.
Yeah.
I don't.
Now that I think about it.
Yeah, we don't really ever see her.
But she has two other friends. There is Harriet, who is her other roommate, who is just a delight. Harriet, I thought, was the emotional backbone of this. Kind of like
as she sometimes is.
In Lizzie Bennet Diaries, kind of like how Jane was kind of the emotional backbone.
Yeah.
I thought Harriet was great in this. She's the one I think is getting a degree in psychology at this point.
Yeah.
There's her, but then there's also our Mr. Knightley person. This is Jordan Knightley, who's a lady.
Yes.
And that is a big change that they have made. And I was here for it.
Yeah.
Because Jordan was great.
She was great. Yeah, she's actually an actor.
I think she might have been the best actor.
I think.
In the whole thing.
She has like an IMDb page with a headshot and everything.
Yeah. Like she clearly wants to be an actor.
Yes.
And is working hard at it. And the story kind of moves the way it normally would. Some characters just aren't in it. So like Mr. Woodhouse, not in it.
Yeah.
Her Emma's sister and Knightley's brother,
not in
like
it.
just not in it.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that I'm fine with.
Yes.
Because these characters are not super important. If what you want to do is tell the story of Emma and Mr. Knightley, you can do that in a way where you don't need to have those characters.
Yeah.
And I think that was smart writing.
Yeah.
But there are a few people that we know. So there is, for example, and maybe we can walk through what the differences are.
Yeah, there's Emma's ex-boyfriend,
John
Fairfax, right? And then there's his secret new boyfriend, Lincoln Churchill. And they're dating in secret. And like, it makes so much sense in a modern context. Like, John just isn't quite ready for people to know that he's dating a boy, right? Like, that makes sense. But Emma is into Lincoln, even though Lincoln, unbeknownst to her, has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many layers to all of this because one of the implications is that her history with John is that they dated in high school.
Right.
And she does not know that he is bi.
Right.
And so there's, like you say, everyone is at a different point on the spectrum.
Right. And Lincoln is trans, which is cool. And like just a super confident, attractive person. There's a lot of good haircuts. Well, it's funny because he at one point is like, I have to go get a haircut. And then he comes back and his haircut is amazing. And it's like, you did have to go get a hair. Yes, I believe you about your haircut situation.
We do have Mr. and Mrs. Elton. They're handled a little bit differently, though. Mr. Elton is still douchey.
Yeah.
This guy named Phil, you mentioned before, he just like comes up to Emma while she's sitting in the park.
Yeah, and he's like, we should be friends. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then she tries to set Harriet up with him, and he's like, no, I don't like Harriet, even though they sang a ukulele song together.
There's still ukulele stuff. Anyway, I don't want to get into ukulele stuff.
All right, fine.
So then there's Mrs. Elton, who I actually thought this was really smart writing.
Yeah.
In terms of the fact that Emma has a vlog.
Yeah.
And anyone who watches her vlog would know that she had befriended this guy named Phil because he was in the vlog.
And that she rejected him.
Yeah, because that was done on the vlog as well.
Right.
And she asked him if he wanted to, and he was like, yes, I want this to be on the vlog.
Yeah.
And he confesses, he states his intentions, and she rejects him. And then later, she bumps into this girl, April, in the park. And April says, I am such a big fan. In fact, I was at a party, and that guy that you refused to be with was there. And we got together, so I'm dating him now.
Right.
And she's she's not the worst.
No, she's not.
Kind of sucks, but she's not that bad.
And they become friends by the end because she like dumps him at some point because she's like, oh yeah, he was kind of a douchebag.
I mean, and that is just a great change.
Yeah.
The idea that Elton doesn't end up with anybody by the end is fine.
It's fine.
I think it works perfectly well.
Yeah. I mean, just some of the beats of realism of what it was like to be a college student, like sort of the like sad birthday party in the kitchen of the student apartment with your two friends, and somebody made like a shitty box cake in one of those disposable aluminum pans and everyone's sitting there eating it. Like, that's what it was like. Like, it wasn't like, I feel like movies about college are like, we go to these big parties and everybody's there and everybody looks 35 and this and that. Like, no, it's eating shitty box cake on your birthday in the kitchen with your two roommates. Like, that's what college was like for me, and probably for a lot of people, particularly at NYU. I didn't go to NYU. I just mean like these particular students. So I just found it very charming, and I thought that there were some other modern updates that I thought the lack of realism was so extreme as to be distracting and take me out of it. And in this, I was like fully immersed. It was, I just thought it was great.
I just liked these kids.
They were so cute.
I liked them.
I mean, I just felt like such a mom watching it. Like someone would make some dumb decision. I'd be like, oh, honey, oh no, you know?
Yeah. There's just some stuff, like before we move on, I just want to go through some of the things I liked. Like one of the things that they do really specifically in like the scenes is you find out about the John Lincoln relationship. Like they tell you everything about that. You as a viewer are not, you're not experiencing the story through Emma's eyes because you see things that she doesn't see.
Yes.
And I just found it really refreshing.
It's called dramatic irony.
Yeah. I don't see any reason that we shouldn't know about the two of them beforehand. Sometimes it can be handled well and sometimes it can't be. Going back to the musical for a second, that was actually one thing they did in the musical, and that was one moment that stuck with me, is that it is revealed to the audience basically like Emma is singing this love song clearly about Frank, and then Frank steps up next to her. They're not actually standing next to each other, but in the the magic of the theater, it
becomes a duet.
Yeah, they're singing this duet, but the lines he's singing, if you know the story, you're going, I think he's singing those about Jane Fairfax.
And then she comes on
and
stage.
then she steps up next to him. So if you didn't know the story, you as an audience are suddenly like, oh, he doesn't love Emma. He loves Jane Fairfax.
Mhm.
And that was actually, props to them. That was a good moment.
Yes.
And this is the same kind of thing. Like, I actually think it works perfectly well for the story to know about the two of them. And it got me so much more invested in the two of them
Yeah.
as characters.
Yes.
Even though John was this, like,
He was a sad sack.
crazy sad sack bundle of nerves the entire time.
Yeah, like Lincoln could do way better.
But they love each other.
They love each other. It's fine.
One thing that did jump out at me, just going back to April for a second, she shows up with Phil to she wants to see one of Emma's vlogs and she wants to ask her a bunch of questions about how she makes the vlog. This struck me as film student shit more than anything else, because all they're talking about is like cameras and editing software. And I feel like Emma's response to April's questions were exactly what every film student felt like they were experiencing. Like, oh yeah, I go home and like everyone's asking me like, oh, they're calling me the next Spielberg or something. Oh, they're stupid. They don't understand anything. All of my parents' dumb friends asking me about movies. It's like, no, you fucking love it, because the entire reason you're in film school is because you want people to ask you what you think about movies.
There you go.
He said on his podcast about movies. I get these people.
Yeah,
I
know.
understand these
I
people.
know.
I am one of these people.
I know. I felt that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I only have one last thing to say, because we didn't really talk about Hetty Bates at all.
Oh yeah, Hetty was great.
Hetty
She
worked.
keeps bees.
Who did she hit on? She hit on Harriet at the end, right?
Yeah,
Because they're
think
both
so.
pansexual.
I guess.
There's
Everyone in this is gay. Like I don't know if we've like explicitly mentioned that. Just much like actual college students, everyone
Yeah.
is just kind of gay.
and I end up liking Hetty a lot.
Yeah, Hetty was great. But what happens at the end?
At the very
what happens
end,
to Emma?
Emma finds out she's gay.
Yeah.
She never says specifically whether she's gay or bi.
No, she says I'm gay.
Does she say that?
She says I'm very,
oh,
very
yeah,
gay.
she says I'm very, very
she
gay.
says I never
forgot
understood
about that.
why I wasn't attracted to boys, and now I realize it's because I'm gay.
Yep. So Emma figures that out because she figures out that she is in love with Jordan,
Yes.
and Jordan is in love with her.
Which is, again, Jordan could do better.
In the context of the story, it works.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing that really hit me, and this was my note, if I loved you less, great job. Because that line is a great line.
Mm-hmm.
And they did such a good job with it.
Yeah.
They really figured out the context of it. In Emma Approved, it didn't work for us at all.
No, it didn't
The
work at
line
all.
just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't really work with the character, and it
Yeah.
doesn't say what the line is trying to say. With this one, though, I thought the actress playing Jordan, like, killed it.
Yeah.
And did a great job delivering that line. And I just wrote down a notice, these kids did a good job.
These kids, we're so proud of them.
They did a really good job, and they should be proud of themselves because they made something that's really good. Clearly, like, it has no budget.
Mhm.
They made it in their spare time. They just did it because they love. I'm assuming it came out of love of the story.
Yeah.
Because it's there, and
It's very sweet.
they related it to their lives, and I dug it. I
Yeah.
just dug it, and those kids did a good job.
Go watch it. Free on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Last one.
Number one. It's clueless.
Clueless.
It's clueless.
Clueless. I mean, I don't know.
Well, this has been Adapt or Perish. Do you want to talk about Clueless?
I mean, it was just very interesting for me watching Clueless, because I've seen Clueless, of course, a million times.
Yeah.
But watching it now, having been so steeped in Emma and really being able to like pull out all the little threads of Emma, and like I think you told me something that kind of disappointed me, which was like it was the kind of thing where they were already writing it and they realized it was kind of like Emma, and then they decided it was officially Emma.
No. I think it's a little different than that.
Okay.
I might have presented it a little differently when we first talked about it. But basically, Amy Heckerling wrote and directed this movie. She directed a number of movies. She directed Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Johnny Dangerously, which is a super fun movie, National Lampoon's European Vacation. She was like the co-creator and like writer-director of Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking Too. She's done a lot of things, and she did Clueless. And she was writing the script, and okay, so here's another as a for instance about how this can happen. The Coen brothers were writing Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And at some point late in the process, it became apparent to them, or someone suggested, oh, it's kind of like the Odyssey. And they were like, oh, it is kind of like the Odyssey. So late in the process, let's just lean into it a little bit. So like John Goodman's character, let's give him one eye so he's a Cyclops, and stuff like that. It was very superficial. But they were not writing it with the Odyssey in mind. It was a late edition. This is something where if I was giving you the impression that my understanding was that Clueless was like that.
That was my impression from what you told me.
From what I've read further, it sounds like that wasn't the case.
Gotcha.
It sounds like her decision to make it Emma happened way earlier in the writing process.
Gotcha.
And so I think this is okay.
Yeah.
I think you should not feel bad about it, because
Okay.
this is an Emma adaptation.
Great.
Like, she wanted to do something about high school students in the mid-90s,
Mhm.
and realized early on that she was just retelling Emma, and she's like, oh wait, I love Emma.
Mhm.
No, I'm going to lean into this.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much Emma in it, and so much of the way it drives the character motivations and drives the arcs. Like, this is not something where Emma was just grafted onto an existing story.
No, I don't think so. And I think also, like, again, of all the modern ones that we've watched, like, as we know from Emma the musical that was not successful, or even Emma approved that was not successful in some of these ways, it's not always easy to kind of seamlessly transpose something from one era to another era and find those like exact parallels and those great parallels and still make it a good story in and of itself and also call back to the original material. And I think it's something that Clueless does so brilliantly.
Mhm.
I mean, can I give a couple of examples?
Please.
I'm going to run through the characters. I think
Mhm.
that's a good way to do it. So we have Cher, played by Alicia Silverstone, famously, who is a rich young woman, a high school student who lives with her widowed dad. Her mom is dead, and he is a wealthy lawyer. And like part of her thing is like that she's kind of airheaded and kind of vapid, and really enjoys things that aren't like super serious, like clothes and boys and whatever. But she like also takes really good care of her dad. Like it's really important to her. Like she is a caretaker of her dad, and she's really thoughtful. And I think that's what makes this part of what makes this character so beloved, is that she has this really thoughtful side and this really like self-reflective side. Even though, she's also like a ditzy teenage girl.
I mean, I feel like her reach exceeds her grasp.
Yeah.
In terms of being like reflective and being a good person.
But like she wants to be a good
Exactly,
person. Like
exactly.
she really tries to be a good person. Her best friend, this is the part that is so brilliant for me. Like, so her best friend is a young lady named Dion, played by Stacey Dash. And like, so in Emma, right, she has a married friend. Her friend just got married. How do you translate that to high school? Well, obviously it's like the couple that's been dating forever, right? Like Dion and Murray have been together since middle school, right? Like, and everybody knew that couple in high school. I think that just makes it so brilliant. Like Dion's her married friend.
Yeah.
And this girl comes to town who is out of place and different because she comes from a different city, and she doesn't understand like all the things that girls in high school in Beverly Hills like to do. And her name is Ty, and she's very sweet, and she's played by Brittany Murphy, R.I.P.
It was very sad to watch scenes of the three of them together.
Yeah.
Because they
like, okay, Brittany Murphy is not alive.
Yep.
Stacey Dash is like a weird conservative.
She's ridiculous conservative.
And
yeah.
Alicia Silverstone is like the other side, like anti-vaccine, like Gwyneth Paltrow vegan thing.
Yeah.
Which is also just as unfortunate.
I think she feeds her kid baby like Mama Bird style.
Yeah.
Like chews up her food.
Yeah, like she breastfed till he was like 6 or something. Listen.
Any
to
one
each
of
his
those.
own.
I was gonna say
you.
any one of those taken on their own, but no, like chewing up your food and
It's
like
the anti-vax stuff is the stuff
that's the stuff that is offensive.
To
us
breastfeed
deeply.
as long as you want. That's
Yeah.
fine. So like the three of them, as you said before, are sort of like the three main girls, and she has this joy in like matchmaking, and she ends up like matching up her two so this is like the other Mr. and Mrs. Weston equivalent, is that she matches up these two like middle-aged teachers who are probably closer to our age now than we are to Alicia Silverstone's age then, which is really
Don't do this
terrifying.
to yourself.
I know. But anyway, so she does that, and she just like loves doing it, and she wants to do good in the world. And this new, attractive, interesting boy comes to town. And now, again, having been steeped in Emma, my absolute favorite thing of the way that they translated Emma to high school in Beverly Hills is there is no Jane Fairfax, because Jane Fairfax is the entire concept of homosexuality. Because she's like essentially like dating this boy, and she's really interested in him. His name is Christian. And they like go shopping together, and he's great, and they go to these parties, and it's Murray again, because in the book, right, Mr. Weston is the one that like has to come and tell her that Frank Churchill is engaged. It's Murray who's like who has to tell her and Dion like he's gay. Like, do you guys not understand that he's gay? But it's like it's a beautiful friendship, because after she knows that he's gay, they're still like great friends, and like they go shopping together and like all of this great stuff. Like it doesn't change her friendship with him, which I guess was a level of the story I didn't necessarily appreciate when I was like a much younger person watching this movie.
Much younger person. As you say, you're almost
all right.
You're almost
all
Wallace
right.
Shawn's age.
I'm not almost Wallace Shawn's age.
You're the one who said it.
All right. But then the main love interest, of course, is Josh. And again, how did they update your sister's brother-in-law? Her dad has been married like 6 times and was married to Josh's mom for like a year. So technically they're step siblings, but like not really. But he's always hanging out at the house because he loves her dad, which again,
And her dad loves him
her
too.
dad loves him, which is again like a level of complexity that I think I didn't understand again as a younger person, that like Josh really needs a stable figure in his life, and he really loves Cher's dad. He likes being at their house. He's not just like there to annoy her and be like an annoying older brother. Like he likes being there, and her dad offers him like a little bit of a nice home life, and it's really sweet. I actually think it's really sweet. And then of course, and he's like she considers him an annoying, pretentious college student, but at the end it turns out they really like each
And
other.
it was a really nice way to change the ages too, and still have them have an age difference, but make it not like super creepy given the context.
She's like a junior in high school and he's maybe like a sophomore in college.
Yeah, which is that's not
not
terrible.
that bad. And
like,
she's very mature.
Like if at the time I certainly would have looked down on it, but in retrospect, like they're all children.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
It's
if you happen to be listening to this and you're in that age group, I apologize. That's not denigration.
It's fine.
Josh is great.
Yeah.
I mean, that was actually one of the funny things, because when I was talking about like, looking at this threesome of like Alicia Silverstone and Stacey Dash and Brittany Murphy, and all three of them make me sad in different ways. But then Paul Rudd walks in
it's
and
like,
go
he's still great.
Paul Rudd's great.
Looks
Everyone,
the same.
like, it is not special to say that I love Paul Rudd.
Hasn't aged a day.
Everyone loves Paul Rudd.
Everyone loves him.
He's going to turn out to be a secret monster, and we'll all be sad.
Yeah. I feel like if he was a monster, someone would have said so by now.
Well, I think the thing we've learned is that you can go a really long time with people not talking about
That's
stuff
fair
like
enough.
that.
That's fair enough.
So I hope he's Paul Rudd's great. You skipped over Mr. Elton though.
Oh no. Oh right, because there's Elton. She wants to set Ty up with somebody. She picks Elton, this like douchebag.
This was weird to me because I've seen Jeremy Sisto in so many different things. I didn't really buy him as a high school student, even
fair.
though it was like baby Jeremy Sisto.
That's fair.
It's like, who is this grown man who is hanging out with all of these high school kids?
So she is trying to redirect Ty from the stoner skateboarder.
This is my favorite moment.
Yeah.
This was my favorite moment of us watching it, because I haven't seen this movie in 20 years.
Yeah.
And when I watched it the first time, I had no context. I didn't have the Emma context. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was just experiencing it as Clueless. This is the movie. And is that weird thing that happens where you haven't seen a movie in a really long time, but you liked it the first time. So when you're watching it, you remember moments from it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you had asked me before we started watching it, tell me what happens between Brittany Murphy and Breckenmeyer's character, I would have said, oh, I don't remember. Wasn't Breckenmeyer in Can't Hardly Wait? And you would have said, yes, he's in both.
Mm-hmm.
I did not remember. But then as soon as the movie started happening and the two of them start flirting with each other, I remember, oh, right, he's the stoner kid that Ty likes.
He's Robert Martin.
And then I turned to you and I'm like, wait, is Breckenmeyer Robert Martin?
Yeah.
I love Robert Martin.
There you go.
And I love Breckenmeyer.
There you go.
So it worked perfectly.
Well, and
I was so excited.
It's so cute. Again, like the thing that I think was a level of subtlety that was lost on me, like again, as a much younger person, like preteen watching this movie, is like how frequently Ty is like looking for drugs. Like she wants some drugs. And like it's actually a very wholesome message that Alicia that Cher gives her, which is like, no, like you actually don't do that to be cool. Like it's one thing to like smoke a little bit at a party, but like it's not cool to be stoned all day like your friend Breckenmeyer over there, and you shouldn't be with him. Like no self-respecting girl would date a stoner skateboarder.
There's one little thing that I think was a little on the nose from Amy Heckerling.
What's that?
Breckenmeyer's character's name?
Yeah,
because it's not Robert Martin.
No.
Do you remember what it is?
What is it?
Travis Birkenstock.
Travis Birkenstein. That's right. It's pretty funny.
Little on the nose, but it works. I want you to talk about how proud Mel is of his daughter.
This
This is my favorite part of watching it with you.
Just Mel, played by Dan Hedaya, who is great and maybe would play my dad in the movie of My Dad's Life. We discussed.
Not even because they in any way resemble each other. More that I think his portrayal in this movie of Mel reminds you of your relationship with your dad.
So he's a lawyer, right? Like he's a litigator, and basically what he's taught Cher is like anytime she gets some grades back that she like doesn't agree with, she needs to go back to her teachers and essentially bargain with them for better grades, negotiate with them for better grades. And she comes home with her report card and he's like disappointed, and then she comes home with her new report card and he's like, what is the scene? He's like, you talked your way from a C+ to an A-, and she goes, yeah, just through my powers of persuasion. Aren't you proud of me? And he just gets like misty-eyed and goes, so I'm worried I'm not going to get the line right, but it's like, honey, I couldn't be prouder than if they were based on actual grades. And it's just like, anytime, I think I said to you, like, anytime my dad has ever been proud of me, it's based on a negotiation I had with someone who was being unreasonable and how I came out ahead. And I just really liked it.
Mhm.
Is that what you wanted me to
That
talk
was what I
about?
wanted you to talk
There you
about.
go.
I thought it was very, very sweet. This movie's really good.
Mhm.
It doesn't, I mean, I just want to acknowledge while we're here on the record, like, I don't know that 100% of it ages that well. It was a little weird to me how, I felt a little weird about Donald Faison's character in this
Mhm.
specifically.
Yeah.
Just knowing that all the words that he was saying were written by Amy Heckerling.
Sure.
Which it didn't sit well with me. Like, I wasn't like offended by it or anything like that, but I definitely was looking at it through a lens that I was not looking at, Clueless through 20 years ago.
Sure.
But those quibbles are so few and far between. It's a good movie.
It's a really good movie.
And that's the thing I love about it, because this has come up on the show before, that when you have someone that just wants to make an adaptation of something, but they make it modern, as long as it's its own thing, as long as it's good first, it's a good adaptation.
Mhm.
Because Emma is good.
Yeah.
And Emma is compelling. And Emma is a story about a young woman who goes through an arc where she starts the story thinking she can control everybody's life, and then by the end of it realizes that that's wrong. That's the story of Emma.
Mhm.
And there are also a number of other characters who are also really enjoyable, and it's a fun story. So if you tell a story of Emma where that's the basic through line and you've made something good, congratulations, you've made a good adaptation of Emma.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add on to that kind of what I was saying before, like, yes, maybe that's all that's required for a good adaptation of Emma,
Mhm.
but like, if you want a great adaptation and you really draw those parallels and you really think, like, what really would the modern equivalent be
Yeah.
of like her married best friend, or the person in high school that's in a lower class, do you know what I mean? Or like all of those little things, like what would her dad do, who would Josh be, like all of those little things, I think really help to tie it back to the original material and just show that you've thought about it, like.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe the difference between good and great, and I would call this a great
I
adaptation.
think it's a trap that people fall into when they're trying to adapt something that's old, and you can't just do a one-for-one, a translation of something. Like,
Mhm.
the Box Hill trip doesn't really work because they're not gonna. She and her friends aren't going to get their servants together to go up to the top of the one hill that looks out. Like, stuff like that isn't gonna happen.
Yeah, just send them to a party, which is what they do. They just go to
Yeah.
a party that doesn't go very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, you can do stuff like that. It's okay, as long as you're thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
But when you just think, like, when you put as little thought into it as possible, and you think, I said this before, but you feel like you're going to get an A for showing up.
Mhm.
You don't just get an A for showing up. I don't. For me, watching it, as someone who has become a fan of Emma, if I watch it and you go, oh, they referenced Box Hill, I know that from the story, that's not good enough for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the trap that Emma approved fell into.
Yeah.
It's like you throw a few references in there with a plot that doesn't make sense, and like some of the updating of things like make it even more confusing. Like the whole thing with Jane and her computer didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like honestly, again, like knowing, and you've said this before, like knowing which characters to cut is also an art. There's no Jane Fairfax in this.
Yeah.
Jane Fairfax is the fact that Christian is gay.
Mhm.
That is Jane Fairfax, and then it's just so brilliant. It's so perfect.
Like, can I throw out a bad idea?
Sure.
Here's a bad idea. Christian might have had a fake girlfriend that he would tell people about. And
Yeah.
he would tell them that her name is Jane. Yes, me having read the book, I would know what he's talking about. I would understand the reference at that point. But would that actually improve the story?
No.
No, I think it would have made it worse,
Yes.
because I think the way the story was told was really, really good.
Yes.
And if someone felt like they needed to throw all of those things in to have the audience understand, oh, no, I'm going to hold their hand, I'm going to let them know, oh, it's Emma. Did you know this is Emma? This is Emma.
Yeah.
Like, here's something. So, okay, I'm actually going to say this, and I am saying this with 99% certainty. So without going back and rewatching it, I don't know off the top of my head. But from my recollection of watching it, at no point in this Jane Austen adaptation that's modern day do they reference Jane Austen?
Yeah, they're not like they might be reading Pride and Prejudice like in English class, maybe, but like I don't think they are. Like there's the Hamlet reference when they're in the car with
Which is
Josh's
fine.
pretentious girlfriend, which is not Jane Austen, obviously. But like I mean, if they do, it is fleeting and not with like any kind of a wink at the audience or anything like that. It's not there.
Because that's the stuff I have no patience for.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's Emma.
Yeah.
It's not. You don't need to hit me over the head with the fact Jane Austen wrote Emma.
Yeah, thank
know-
you. Yeah,
I know.
I know.
And that's fine. Clueless is fucking great and
It's great.
hysterical and very funny. And Paul Rudd is just it's all so fucking good. They do the thing that I'm enjoying in so many of these versions, where finding out that Mr. Knightley is in love with Emma is something that isn't saved for the moment that he tells Emma that he's in love with her.
Yeah.
Like this is one where you can tell that he's into her early on.
Oh yeah.
And that's
fine.
That
That's
totally
fine.
works. That doesn't undermine the central story. It doesn't undermine it as an adaptation at all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we are left with the immortal line,
Oh my God, I love Josh.
which I know is your favorite.
Yes.
Are we done with Emma?
I think we're done. I think we're done with Emma.
In the last hour and a half, I haven't found any other versions that were like just super available on like Hulu or something that we needed to watch.
Thank God for that, because I'm ready to move on to our next thing.
I think we're done with Emma.
Great.
This was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Me too. Do you want to do some quadrants and wrap up?
Let's wrap this up. Okay, let's go in the order that we did for this episode. Jane Austen's Emma, a musical romantic comedy.
Oh my God.
Do you think they cared about the source material?
Honestly, like I think they kind of did. Like this guy Paul Gordon really seems to have a love for 19th century literature.
No, I'm going to disagree with that.
You think it was like a cynical thing, like, oh, I had a big hit, now I can do it just over and over again?
Yeah.
That's fair.
I understand that's a wild assumption. Like, I have no evidence for that.
I mean, all of this is always a wild assumption. We don't know.
This didn't feel like it was born out of love.
That's fair.
Was it successful?
No.
Okay, moving on. Emma approved. Do you think this was born out of a love for the source material?
No, again, I think we had a hit with the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Let's try to copy the format with something else that's kind of similar.
Yeah.
I really, really feel that way, even more strongly, honestly, than with the musical. I look at this very cynically.
Mm-hmm. Was it successful?
No.
No.
I'm sorry.
Like, you're a firm no. It bums me out to say
Yeah.
no, but no.
I'm sorry to say.
Aisha, do you
Mhm.
think they cared about the source material of Emma?
I think they cared about Clueless.
I think they did a lot.
Yeah.
I think they cared about Clueless, and they went the extra mile to also make it an adaptation of Emma.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they really cared about Emma.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to remake
Put it on the
Clueless.
line, because I think it's a Clueless remake.
Yeah. Was it successful?
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good movie.
It's a binary thing. Like, sure.
Yes.
Sure, it's fine. Okay, the Emma agenda. Do you think they cared about Emma?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. Was it successful?
Yes.
Those kids did a good job.
Those kids did great.
They should be
So
proud of
good.
themselves.
They should be proud of themselves. I hope they got an A for their project.
Clueless. Do you think Amy Heckerling cared about Emma?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it successful?
Yes.
Famously so.
Famously.
I enjoyed this, sweetie.
Yeah, me too.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. And third, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We have a fan community on Slack that's been super fun for the last few months. We also have a bonus show called Adapter Parish Plus that comes out between episodes of this show. We would love for you to join us there as well.
You're a virgin who can't drive.
It's real. A, good Brittany Murphy impression.
Thank
B,
you.
fucking takedown.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That was way harsh, Ty. Bye, everybody.
Bye.